I don't know if I've ever shared a story quite like this, guys. It's a very exciting one. At the same time, a very nerve-wracking story out there over in the Korean League of Legends scene, otherwise known as the LCK, involving the esports organization. Pretty notorious in that scene as well, that being Griffin Esports, or Griffin, now under controversy as a former coach, a former ADC as well. Other sources now come forward over the past few days with some very serious allegations. And again, I have not seen a story like this. Hopefully this will uncover other possible bad stories like this that might be going on in scenes that we don't really cover too often, at least here on this channel. It's actually going to involve Kanavi, a former sub player for Griffin, going to JD Gaming in apparently a very controversial way. We'll talk about that in the very last part of this episode if you guys want to skip forward a few minutes. But what led up to this is even more impressive, that being the director, team manager known as Cho for Griffin, also being involved with arguments with their former coach, that being CV Max. If you guys have actually followed Griffin for quite some time, he's been there, that being the coach CV Max, for about 3 years, and before Worlds he was actually let go, then signed back on, and then let go again. And amongst this controversy, he was not really saying too much besides the offer that went down for that sub player Kanavi actually going to JD Gaming. It was very skeptical, suspicious. He didn't really say much until now Griffin players are coming out and saying, hey, by the way, what our former coach is saying, don't listen to him, it's false. And once that started, well, the wildfire came next, guys. CV Max has now come forward with drastic allegations around Griffin, and we'll see if these allegations actually hold truth. But if they do, it's super scary what goes on, especially in the Asian scene where they hold you to the utmost, I would say, skill-wise in this game of League of Legends. So let's break it down. And so first of all, it's actually a former ADC for that team, that being Griffin, and that being the ADC known as Dang Wu. He's now come forward on a Reddit post. It's gone viral as well, over 8,000 upvotes. He pretty much just clarifies the situation that Cho, the director and team manager for Griffin, and their former coach, that being CV Max, have always argued. They've always had this combative stance towards each other. He goes on to clarify that first of all, it was actually Cho, who apparently knows nothing about the game itself. He always was interrupting and arguing with their former coach CV Max, and he also credits that former coach with a large portion of those players' success. So pretty much setting the stage for all of you guys, that's a former ADC, a former member of this team, has confirmed these two guys, these two main characters in the story, the team manager Cho and the coach CV Max, have always had it out for each other and have always argued. Now, second that comes out, that's being CV Max and his story with Dexerto. All of these articles will be linked down below for all of you. It pretty much confirms why he was kicked before Worlds, and for anyone curious, not too surprising, apparently the standards over there are held ridiculously high, and making Worlds this year was not good enough to save his career with that team. It was pretty much summed up by the fact that he should have won a championship by now. Apparently the organization had told him in his 3 years he should have won Worlds by now with a team like Griffin, and apparently going to Worlds this year was not good enough to save him, although in those 3 years they've only gone to Worlds once. It is weird, the 1 year they finally go, and they do usually finish towards the top half of the split, especially the last 2 or 3 splits. That's not good enough, and they've made Worlds this year, and they decide to fire the guy. So yes, suspicious reasons. Is that also attributing to the fact that he is now talking? Maybe. Either way, he is now talking, and what he actually brought forward is a very brash allegation, so we'll call it that, guys. But a transfer of a player, which if this is true, this is actually borderline very scary for any up-and-coming pro players out there, especially in the Asian and Korean scene, as he does say in this allegation. Apparently it was, like I said before, the Kanavi transfer from Griffin to JD Gaming, and how that went down. He states that Kanavi was apparently on vacation in Korea when he received a text message from someone at JD Gaming offering him a $170K salary and to pay for his transfer and buyout fee of upwards of $850,000. Now, Kanavi told his coach about this offer. His coach, CV Max, said to ignore it and not reply because that could be considering tampering, or if you League of Legends fans probably know it as, it could be poaching, right? If you were a contracted player contacted by any other organization out there, it is not allowed. It can be tampering, and I imagine a lot of organizations out there do hold it. They restrict you a lot in the fact that you should not be poached or talking to other teams. Now, the next day, though, according to CV Max, it was Kanavi called into the team manager Cho's office and then yelled at for tampering. If you guys recall, it was CV Max who said Kanavi had told his coach about it and did not reply to that team. The next day, the team manager calls Kanavi into the office, yells at him and says that you were tampering, and he says he will finish the request for him. And here on screen for all of you is where, the breakdown, it gets pretty insane. Now, how this deal actually apparently was accepted, it apparently was that Cho, that being the team manager, forcing Kanavi then to sign a 5-year contract with JD Gaming with the lowest possible salary so that Cho and Griffin could acquire the highest possible transfer fee for him. Now, how that works, if you guys do not understand that, pretty simple math, right? If you can somehow force a player to sign with a team taking a lower salary, that team is probably going to pay more or be willing to pay more for that said player. So initially we said that same offer offered to Kanavi was apparently $170,000 salary and an $850,000 transfer fee to pay for him. Let's say the team of Griffin somehow got Kanavi to take a lower salary. They're obviously willing to pay a much higher transfer or buyout fee for him. Thus, Griffin makes more from that because they're not going to make whatever they pay him for salary. They're going to make the buyout and transfer fee. And so it's a game of odds out there. And if they forced him to sign a 5-year contract at a much lower salary, you can imagine where they probably are making a nice dime. Griffin's making a nice dime off of him if they actually negotiated for a much higher transfer fee or buyout fee. And so this is pretty insane. This would set precedents of things that might be ongoing out there that we have not heard about yet. We have never before seen a coach come forward about this, and it does beg the question, what does CV Max get from this? Which his last point does make. Apparently, of that transfer and buyout fee that JD Gaming paid for a 5-year contract for Kanavi, Kanavi did not see a single cent, and either did his coach, CV Max. And that is why this is absolutely nuts. If true, it takes a lot of, I would say, gold to come forward about this, but I am glad he is. We'll see if Kanavi responds about this in the future, because if this is true, not only is it tampering slash potentially poaching out there, even more so, if you forced a player into a 5-year contract just so you could benefit more for yourself, it is a very serious allegation. One last thing, guys, a keynote sponsor for Griffin as well has now come forward and said, hey, by the way, also translation on screen for all of you, a quick summary though, hey, by the way, we're going to investigate this team Griffin because obviously a large portion of where Griffin has come to be is because of the financial backing of this sponsor. They have heard these allegations. They will investigate them. They have not dismissed Cho, the team director, yet. He is currently under investigation. So it was kind of a lack of translation on that for you guys on screen. Apparently, Cho is still with the team. Obviously, they're at Worlds, so it does make sense. Once they are back home and ongoing, he is under investigation. If anything comes of this, he will be dismissed, and this team is going to see future repercussions for this. This is a giant allegation out there currently around Griffin. We will see if it actually is true, because if it is, the corruption over there in Asia, well, we'll see if it actually stops here. Until next time, I hope you guys all enjoy the breakdown of esports and gaming news every single day. I hope you guys all enjoy. I'll see you back here sometime soon. Until then, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.